Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you've been grinding in anime tower defense like me, you probably know the pain of rolling hundreds of summons just to get that one mythic unit. I mean, the pull rates are pretty brutal, right? We've all been there, 150 summons deep, fingers crossed, and praying to the RNG gods for that sweet mythic drop. But don't worry, because I've got your back today. In this video, we're going to dive into the ultimate anime tower defense tier list, helping you spend those precious summons wisely. Whether you're a new player or a seasoned veteran, this guide will break down which units are worth your hard-earned gems and which ones you should avoid, like the plague. So sit back, grab some snacks, and let's get right into it. I'm quickly moving on to the video, and I'm ranking units in anime tower defense. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of tier list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching.
A very small portion of the audience is subscribed to the channel. Please don't forget to subscribe if you like these types of videos. Thanks.
The units in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Yuso, Lightspeed, Blademaster, and Gale. Alright, let's dive into some of the absolute worst units in anime tower defense. Yup, we're talking E tier, the bottom of the barrel. First up, we've got Yuso. Now, Yuso isn't completely awful, he's just okay-ish. His stats are passable, but honestly, that's it. He's only slightly better than someone like Blademaster, and trust me, that's not saying much. Speaking of Blademaster, this poor guy is in the running for the lowest DPS in the game. Like, why would you even? He's only there for when you've run out of every single other option. Desperation pick, for sure. Then we have Lightspeed, who sounds cool, right? Well, he's not. The only good thing about him is that he's cheap to place and cheap to upgrade, but don't expect anything else. He's as close to useless as a unit can get. And finally, there's Gale. Now Gale, for a rare unit, actually has decent DPS. I mean, he can hit things and that's great, but that's where his utility ends. Nothing flashy or special here, just raw, average damage. And that's the E tier lineup for you. If you're stuck with these guys, may the anime gods have mercy on your soul. The units in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Buddha, Stretchy, Electro Slash, Annie, and Lightning Wielder. Alright, let's talk about some of the D tier units in anime tower defense. Now I know what you're thinking, why even bother with D tier units? But hear me out, sometimes you just gotta know which units to avoid, or at least how to make the best out of a bad situation, right? First up, we have Buddha. Now, Buddha could have been great. I mean, the guy has got solid range, but here's the problem, his DPS is just tragic. It's like watching paint dry. You'll be waiting forever for him to really do anything meaningful in battle. Honestly, if you're serious about climbing in the game, you'll probably want to bench him sooner rather than later. But then there's Stretchy, and okay, I have a soft spot for Stretchy. He doesn't have much range or damage, but his attack speed, SPA, is lightning fast. He's also necessary for that one portal and his awakened evolution, so you kinda need him. Use him strategically and he can hold his own for a bit, but don't expect him to carry you through the toughest stages. The units in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Swordmaster, Dragon Slayer, Shadowbolt, Veggie, and Celestial Waterbearer. Alright, so let's dive into some of the C tier units in anime tower defense. Now don't get me wrong, just because these guys are C tier doesn't mean they're completely useless. They've got their moments, but compared to some of the more powerful legendaries out there, they just don't quite hit the same. Let's start with Swordmaster, Asta. He's got decent range and damage, and his SPA isn't terrible. But when you put him up against other legendaries, he kinda falls flat. Like, he's not bad, but you'll probably end up swapping him out pretty quickly once you get something stronger. Then we've got Dragon Slayer. Oh man, this guy's got 9 upgrades, and that might sound impressive at first, but it's all downhill from there. The upgrades are super expensive, and the final product, pretty underwhelming. It's like you put in all this effort and resources, and in return, you get meh. He's basically bait for players who haven't tested him out yet, and I gotta say, I've been there. Spent all my coins on this guy thinking he'd be awesome, only to be disappointed. Now, Veggie is a funny one. You might be watching him and wondering, is he even doing anything? Until you fully upgrade him. Then, boom, suddenly he's actually useful. It's a tough grind to get him to that point though, so if you're not committed, he's gonna feel like dead weight on your team. Oh, and Celestial Waterbearer? She's got a huge line attack when maxed, but her cost to get there? Ridiculous. You'll really only want to use her in infinite mode, because otherwise she's just way too pricey for what she offers early on. The units in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Tidal Empress, Chi Master, Stretchy Sailor, Cursed Face, Serpent Fang, and Ice Bender. Alright, let's talk about some of the B tier units in anime tower defense, and trust me, these guys may not be top tier, but they still pack a punch in their own way. Starting off, we've got Tidal Empress. Now, she's a full AoE hybrid unit, and while her DPS is moderate, what really makes her shine is that massive AoE radius. I mean, we're talking about clearing waves of enemies with ease once she's fully upgraded. She's not breaking records, but for the amount of damage she can dish out to large groups, you'll definitely find her useful in most battles. Next up, we've got Chi Master, and this guy, well, he's a bit of a mixed bag. When fully upgraded, he's actually pretty solid, but let's be real, placing him can be a bit of a nightmare. His attack has this annoying bug that makes him inconsistent, which is super frustrating. Still, when you're running infinite mode, he's definitely worth the investment. In fact, you could probably argue he belongs in A tier for infinite runs, but for everything else, he's comfortably sitting in B tier. And hey, don't sleep on Stretchy Sailor. This dude has some good stats, and when you max him out, his long line AoE attack can wipe out waves of enemies like no one's business. But there's always a catch, right? His SPA, that's seconds per attack for those new to the game, is a bit on the high side, which can slow things down. Still, if you can work around that, he's a solid pick for your lineup. The units in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Skyflame, Ocean Sentinel, Stretchy Orc, Shinobi, Tengan, Battle Frenzy, and Tide Warrior. Alright, let's dive into some A tier units in anime tower defense, and trust me, there are some real gems here that you're gonna want on your team. First up, we've got Skyflame. Now, the non-Evo version of Skyflame isn't going to blow anyone's mind, but don't sleep on him. He's still a step up from all those legendaries, and the real magic happens when you evolve him. You need him for that top tier evolution. So even though the base form isn't amazing, you'll be glad you stuck with him once he evolves. Next is Ocean Sentinel, and let me be real with you, he's a bit of a mixed bag. His range, kinda meh. His SP, not great. And his AoE, yeah, pretty small, but wait. There's hope. He packs some decent base damage and has hybrid targeting, so he's not completely out of the game. I mean, sure, you're not going to lead with him, but he's got a spot on the squad if you know how to use him right. Now, Stretchy Ardiak is all about range. I'm talking one of the longest ranges in the entire game. It's crazy. But here's the thing, that's pretty much where his greatness ends. His DPS doesn't really live up to the hype his range gives him, so while he'll hit targets way across the map, don't expect him to obliterate them as quickly as some other units. And finally, let's talk about Shinobi. Oh man, if you're into low S-bar, excellent range, and high base damage, Shinobi is your guy. He's easily one of the best legendary units in the game right now, and let me tell you, his evolutions are absolutely worth it. The units in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Psycho Wave Evo, Skyflame Evo, Cursed King, Moonslayer, Psycho Wave, Shinobi Fourtails, Berserker, Crimson Fist, Aqua Hollow, and Tidal Predator. Alright, let's dive right into some of the top S tier units in anime tower defense. First up, we've got Psycho Wave Evo, and let me tell you, this one's a bit of a hot topic. While Psycho Wave Evo packs some serious DPS and range, there's one major issue. His AoE is tiny. It's almost like you're using him for his impressive stats, but then you realize, wait, why is his area of effect so small? In fact, there are moments when the non-Evo version feels better. Yeah, you heard me right. So, if you're thinking of maxing him out, just be aware he's not always as OP as you'd hope. Now, switching gears to Skyflame Evo, this guy is a beast. Once you max him out, he fires off this massive line AoE that just melts enemies. It's like watching a laser beam cut through butter. And the best part? It doesn't just hit once. Nope, it keeps damaging enemies for several seconds. Talk about satisfying. If you want a unit that can clean up waves with style, this is your go-to. He's definitely one of the flashier mythics in the game, and you'll feel like a boss every time that attack goes off. Let's talk Cursed King. If you haven't tried him out yet, you're missing out. This guy goes full AoE when fully upgraded and brings some serious damage to the table. Not only that, but he applies bleed, which just adds that extra bit of spice. His SPA, seconds per attack, is a bit long, but his skill channels for a while, meaning enemies are just sitting there, taking damage for what feels like forever. Seriously, if you're looking for a solid unit that can handle tougher enemies while bleeding them out, Cursed King's your man. And finally, we've got Moonslayer. This dude is fast, one of the lowest SPAs in the game. Pair that with decent range and base damage and you've got a solid unit. The only downside, he's got a line AoE, which limits him a bit compared to some of the other heavy hitters like Cursed King or Skyflame Evo. But hey, he's still a monster on the battlefield if you position him right. Keep him focused on straight paths and he'll shred through waves in no time. The units in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Ant King, Red Knight, Shinobi King of Tails, Quake Emperor, Cursed King Evo, Crimson Fist Evo, Moonslayer Evo, Berserker Evo, and Forest Keeper. Alright, let's dive into the absolute top tier units in anime tower defense. These are the ones you need on your squad if you want to dominate the game. Let's kick things off with Ant King. This guy's an absolute beast. He's got the highest base damage out of all the secret units, and even though some of his other stats might be a little lower, don't sleep on him. He's still tearing through enemies like a hot knife through butter. Honestly, it's hard to find a more consistent damage dealer than Ant King. Now, Red Knight is another insane pick. She's got full AoE, meaning she's dishing out damage to everything in range, and her stats across the board are just solid. The only thing holding her back slightly is her range. It's a bit shorter than Shinobi Sixtails. Speaking of which, Sixtails is full AoE when maxed out, and this dude hits like a truck. He's got amazing range, crazy damage, and his SPA, that's seconds per attack for those of you who are new here, is top tier. If you can get your hands on him, your squad's going to be in for a treat. And let's not forget Quake Emperor, one of the strongest secret units, no question. What makes him stand out is that he's a hybrid with some of the longest range in the game. Oh, and he's also full AoE when fully upgraded. Yeah, this guy's just bonkers. Pair him with Cursed King Evo and you've got a killer combo. Cursed King Evo is just ridiculously OP. He's also full AoE with insane damage and that sweet bleed effect. His SPA might look bad at first, but his attack channels for most of it, so it really doesn't matter. Last but not least, let's talk about Berserker Evo and Forest Keeper. Berserker Evo, pretty much a better version of Cursed King with higher stats across the board and also rocking that bleed. As for Forest Keeper, she's the only farm unit in the game right now, which means she's an absolute must for farming resources. Sure, you don't need her as much in infinite mode, but anywhere else? You're gonna want her on your team, trust me. The video ends here. See you in another video, don't forget to subscribe.